There's a guy eating the multiverse. There's always a guy eating the multiverse. At some point, it'll reach the central finite curve, then it'll be our problem.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Rick and Morty Season 9, Episode 1 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references. Evil Morty is back for the first episode of the season, the first time in a couple of seasons. He is probably the most popular character the show has ever created, so it's almost weird that they don't try to use him even more. The episode is titled There's Something About Morty, a reference to the movie There's Something About Mary. It's a great movie. It stars Keith David, who also plays President Curtis on Rick and Morty. They literally just announced that there's a President Curtis spin-off TV show that's releasing episodes later this year. It's like an X-Files type of show with President Curtis going around solving a bunch of problems. It kind of sounds like from the trailers that Rick and Morty will cameo on it every once in a while, but not every single episode. It is also one of a couple of spin-offs Rick and Morty has attempted in recent years. They just did a Vindicator spin-off a couple years ago. I'm sure they will eventually try more. Dan Harmon also recently announced that they're doing a Rick and Morty movie, but didn't say when the movie's going to release. Probably not for a couple more years. 100 years, Rick and Morty. They also make that rant at the end of the episode again, too, or a reference to the Rick and Morty rant. Maybe the show really will continue for infinity, for forever, till the heat death of the universe. This episode of Rick and Morty is also one of a few that have been rated TVMA, which is basically rated R for television shows. If you didn't know, not every single Rick and Morty episode is meant to be totally adult animation, even though technically the show is supposed to be adult animation. Some episodes just go way harder than other episodes. The cold open starts with Chicago's Saturday in the Park song and Morty enjoying himself, presumably it's a Saturday, drinking a 7-Eleven slushie. I wonder if this is product placement. Anytime you see real-world logos inside TV shows or they reference real-world brands, usually it's product placement. Rick and Morty has a long tradition of doing tie-in commercials for real-life brands with jokes about them selling out in the actual commercials, like they build it into the commercials themselves. So some of them are actually pretty funny. They have a pool now for some reason, Beth and Jerry enjoying it, but you can still see the family's graves in the very back of the yard to let you know that this is still the main version of the family that we've been watching last season, previous seasons. Summer is also video chatting with someone on her phone like they're all just having fun. Morty references 7-Eleven specifically. The reason why he's so impressed by the ones in Asia is because in Japan particularly, 7-Eleven is way more legit. They call them konbinis, way better food options, like just superior to the American versions of 7-Eleven. Recently, in real life, one of the co-creators that was responsible for turning 7-Eleven into this giant international brand in Japan also just died, so RIP to him. But that was actually just an unfortunate circumstance. They wrote this episode years ago, so like this bit about 7-Eleven had no reference to him in real life. Rick is in the middle of making a self-chilling beer, and they set up the intro bit with Rick not wanting to tell Morty that he's texting with Evil Morty, and they have this ongoing relationship that seems like it's been going on since the last time we saw Evil Morty.
I was just catching Morty here up on our off-screen exploits.
One of the huge jokes of the episode is that they've been having weekly adventures together that are all way more interesting than the weekly episodes that we've been seeing with regular Morty and Rick season to season. Like there's a whole other show that they've been doing that we just haven't seen yet that's way cooler than what we've been watching with the actual episodes. Evil Morty spends pretty much the entire episode trying to make regular Morty jealous of his relationship with Rick. Also revealing, like one of the big reveals, is that he actually wants Rick to become his permanent Rick. This is also a bit of a callback to the Something About Mary movie, where you have a bunch of different characters competing over the affections of Mary. But in the case of the episode, Rick is the Mary of this equation. So if it wasn't clear, Evil Morty is jealous of regular Morty, and regular Morty is definitely jealous of Evil Morty. The last time we actually saw Evil Morty was back in Season 7, so it has been a hot minute since he's been in an episode. But like I said, they've been implying that since Season 7, every single week, he and Rick have been going on their own adventures that we just have not seen or heard about yet. We get all the new intro scenes. We'll see which one of these wind up being in episodes this season. None of them are in this particular episode, but we see Beth playing a game of Dungeons & Dragons, but it's real, and the family are tiny and being forced to play in the game. She seemingly gets poofed out of existence or also teleported into the game board. Rick and Morty then go fishing together on an alien planet. Then the family try to survive in the ocean on an alien planet inside a giant boot. The sun looks all cartoony, so this might be some kind of warped reality if it's not just another alien planet. Beth and Jerry are transformed into unicorns flying through space rainbows. This might be a montage or a dream sequence, or like one of those really trippy alternate reality types of sequences they've done with Jerry and other characters multiple times in previous episodes where their bodies are warped across many, many different realities. Beth is also obsessed with horses. Maybe this has something to do with that. Then Rick, Morty, and Summer are competing with another human for Earth in some kind of intergalactic Olympic swimming competition. When we go back to the episode, Rick reveals the reason he's been texting with Evil Morty for what seems like this whole time since they last encountered him, meaning the last couple of seasons, is because Evil Morty has been extorting him, forcing him to help with things, or he will erase the whole family with an Omega device. Meaning that after they defeated Prime Rick a couple of seasons ago, Evil Morty just started using the Omega device to keep this version of the family trapped so that he could extort Rick week to week, basically forcing him to go on weekly episode adventures with him separate from regular Morty. He makes the Q Star Trek reference, cosmic gay guy obsessed with chess, which is a callback to an episode in The Next Generation called Tapestry, but I also think that they're making the Bond Q reference, but at least in the case of their relationship, it'd be like a reverse Q situation. Evil Morty then shows up using another yellow portal when Rick doesn't pick up the phone. Yellow portals allow him to travel outside the central finite curve. Green portals, which Rick normally uses later in the episode, just work within the central finite curve. When he mentions off-screen exploits, that's another joke about Rick and Evil Morty going on adventures all the time over the past couple of episodes, seasons we haven't seen, just a bunch of mystery adventures week to week like there's a whole other show that we have not seen.
Sorry, Morty made it weird.
We were never a thing.
Then proceeds to try and make regular Morty jealous of him and Rick's relationship for the rest of the episode constantly. He takes them to his current base, showing them the other version of the family in the Omega device. All they need to erase the copies of someone from the multiverse is any one copy from any reality. So he says that the family that he put in here is from a perfect hostage dimension that don't need to go to the bathroom, and they've been in here for the last couple of years since the end of season 7, the last time we saw Evil Morty. When he reveals the scenes from other realities, there are also a couple references to previous episodes. Rick in the armor, Cyborg Summer, Beth is a Cenobite, there's even Doofus Rick, Deep Cut, Paul Fleshman, Beth's new husband after she divorced Jerry in that reality, also implying that in those previous episodes, each were different versions of the family. Sometimes they'll do that in episodes where they reference previous episodes, like, wait a minute, were we watching a whole other version of the family in this episode? Morty clocks that Evil Morty can't erase him because it would mean killing himself, so Morty is like the one person immune to all of Evil Morty's threats, which might be one of the reasons why Evil Morty seems like he despises regular Morty so much and is so jealous of him, because he can't completely get rid of him and replace him as the main Morty with this Rick. Evil Morty shows the central finite curve again and reveals the actual villain of this particular episode, at least the first half of the episode, is eating the multiverse and is named the Collective, who he also calls Frumble Wumple for some reason, and there's another guy eating the multiverse all the time like it's a regular thing, but this character is actually a new cameo voiced by Tilda Swinton, who has been in a ton of Marvel stuff because the Collective character is basically like the Rick and Morty version of Galactus. That's why it's purple, but also crossed with the Borg from Star Trek because of the earlier Star Trek reference, and its whole thing is absorbing other realities, like the Borg's whole thing is absorbing other beings' cultures. They then call out the trope of exposition. I don't consider that a fourth wall break, but there are a couple of fourth wall breaks later in the episode. They can't use portal fluid because the being can absorb them and make its own portal fluid, and they don't want to make it more powerful than it already is. They reveal Evil Morty and Rick talk about science and treat it like Morty is jealous of them because he's not as smart as they are, and their conversations they have on their own adventures are way more interesting than the conversations that regular Morty has with Rick. They reveal that their separate adventures that we haven't been seeing week to week have been them defending the central finite curve, basically the idea they defend reality and their adventures are way bigger stakes than the adventures that Morty has with him week to week in the episodes that we actually see. Basically, Evil Morty and Rick having way cooler adventures.
So you guys do stuff like that together a lot?
Then they reveal the Collective creature looks just like another version of Marvel's Galactus consuming a planet, but with the Aztec Mesoamerican vibe and the Borg idea that it absorbs other beings, turning them into itself. Resistance is futile. Rick also calls it galactic, as in Galactus, and forces Morty into a special protective suit to make him feel even less useful during this particular adventure. They make a joke about him being able to piss in the suit, maybe to set up later that he actually pissed in the suit. They don't actually show him doing it, but they kind of imply that he's going to be doing it soon. When the Collective gets up off of its throne, I think that's meant to be a comp to Galactus' throne in the Fantastic Four movie. All the rotating faces also felt like a reference to Golb from Adventure Time. They have a crazy over-the-top action scene, like really top-tier, S-tier action scene with Evil Morty like they're perfect partners together. Way better partners than regular Morty and Rick. They eventually trick it to absorb itself continually with the bit that it turns itself into a USB drive, like it compresses itself down into a USB drive. And revealed that this particular boss isn't nearly as bad as the one last week, and they've just been going on adventures of this scale all the time on the regular. When they go to the space diner called Diney's, that also felt like a Shoney's reference. We never left the Shoney's. You also notice sitting in the booth right next to them seems like something that looks kind of like a time cop. Keegan-Michael Key's time cop from previous episodes also comes back at the end of the episode with all the time cops to arrest Evil Morty. I think this is also to set up the idea that Rick also alerted them at some earlier point, so they were waiting to arrest Evil Morty this entire episode. Evil Morty really starts to lay into Morty, trying to make him feel like he's useless and his relationship with Rick is superior to regular Morty's, like he has a stronger connection with him. They're better partners, they have more interesting adventures, all to try and make him as jealous as possible, all to make the ultimate payoff in this episode to reveal that Evil Morty really does want Rick to become his permanent Rick, like he really does care about actual Rick. Which actually feels like a pretty big canonical reveal because his whole thing in previous episodes, previous seasons up to this point was to kill all the other Ricks. He also says Rick has even done some time-traveling stuff with him. He has done a couple times with regular Morty, but typically it's been very off-limits since season 1. It's just a reference to Rick doing things with Evil Morty he would never normally do with regular Morty, and set up the Time Cops bit for the end of the episode. Evil Morty then returns to his lair after they take off, revealing that Rick and Morty vandalized it to get back at him, freeing his hostages from the Omega device and stealing all of his weapons and technology. Rick also explained that he put the blueprints for the Omega device inside the Omega device, basically erasing it from all realities so that Evil Morty will never be able to use that against them again. Then blocks Evil Morty's phone number, really pissing him off, and I think this is one of the first times we've ever actually seen Evil Morty get super flustered by something on the show. We get a really cool montage of them breaking through different realities back into the central finite curve, and Rick portals the entire house into a dimension where everything has special armor, which he calls the bunker dimension. Like, literally everything is armored up. He even has a version of Gene that's super hardcore, who used to be a Marine, that they set up for a bit later in the episode, too.
Hoorah! At ease, PG.
You also notice he has a giant GLaDOS inside his garage in this reality too, which I think we've actually seen GLaDOSes in the episodes before too, like this isn't the first time one has shown up. When he's explaining everything to the family, you also notice inside this reality the fast food place is called Bunker Burgers because everything is bunker themed in this dimension. He also says Space Beth is not allowed in the bunker with them, even though she's part of the family, because she's mean to him sometimes. Jerry learns about Evil Morty for the first time, which also feels like a pretty big reveal, like, oh yeah, that's right, he didn't know a whole lot about Evil Morty before this. Rick references the Akira movie. There are many Akira references in their final fight between him and Evil Morty, like Evil Morty goes full Akira. Rick then starts calling out a bunch more tropes of bunker stories, bunker movies, TV shows, where the different inhabitants turn on each other and all start going insane because they're in the bunker, trapped in the bunker for too long. Rick does his first fourth wall break of the episode when he references the canon of the show. He knows he's a character inside a TV show. Canon is the basic rules and story that a show or movie sets up for itself, that it tries to reference early, like keep things on rails so that everything makes sense if there are sequels or multiple episodes, like a regular TV show. But when he says he doesn't keep track of that stuff, it's the writers and Dan Harmon in real life referencing that they don't really like the canon episodes of the show that much, and the show's gone on for so long that the canon has started to become more of a hindrance to them because it started to loop back on itself. Like the show references the earlier seasons of itself a lot now. Dan Harmon actually said that they have people that work on the show, like younger people, who actually help keep track of the canon of the earlier seasons that they set up and like all the different details when they're trying to come up with ideas. And a lot of ideas that they come up with, they discover they've already done in previous seasons and just forgot about. Evil Morty then does break into the bunker, which Rick said that he probably would, sacrificing a robot butler, so R.I.P. Butler, who they just introduced for this little bit here, and they pay off the bit with Bunker Gene being a former Marine when he says Semper Fi before Evil Morty kills him, so R.I.P. Bunker Gene. He continues to try and make regular Morty jealous, but Rick says he created the bunker dimension to protect them from a bunch of different things, which makes sense. There are many, many different things in the multiverse that want to kill Rick. Then they start making a bunch more literal Akira references with Evil Morty's powers and abilities, like the telekinesis, the force fields, his red burst ability, disassembling Rick's gun, and then his body, all stuff from the Akira movie. They have an epic battle. Rick's body, mostly being a robot here, is because he's replaced his body with robot parts many, many times in the past. He replaces his body parts a couple times in this particular episode. When his brain escapes Evil Morty and jumps back into his body, they make a bunch of Looney Tunes sound effects, like it's literally out of a Looney Tunes episode, like a Roadrunner type of bit. And it winds up ending with a Morty on Morty slap fight and the entire family ganging up on Evil Morty. When he tries to use Rick's time pausing ability from previous seasons against them, he gets arrested by the time cops who come back in this episode, like Keegan-Michael Key's character and the rest of them. So the idea is that for at least the near term, he's going to be in their prison, which is basically the writers just saying, like, we're going to bring him back when we want to use him in an episode again, but at least for now, he's kind of on a timeout. When he's being carted away, Rick also tries to apologize to him, making it sound like he enjoyed their separate adventures that they were having behind the scenes, and makes another fourth wall break saying season 9 of the show, which just started, like we just watched episode 1, and the indefinite number more of episodes is a callback to 100 years of Rick and Morty rant, as in the show will probably continue to the heat death of the universe. They revealed that Jerry had the worst slurs, shocking Beth and Summer, paying off the bit from earlier where Rick told them to say a whole bunch of slurs. Maybe he's super racist. You can let me know what you think those slurs are in the comments. Please do not commit any hate crimes in the comments, though. Morty thinks, probably incorrectly, that Evil Morty is off the board for good, but I don't believe that. Like I said, I think it's just temporary until the writers want to use the character again. He gets insecure about their relationship again. Rick also refuses to answer which Morty he likes more, implying that he kind of did like Evil Morty more than regular Morty. During the post-credits scene is Evil Morty being taken into the Time Cop's prison, and this particular Time Cop is played by the rapper Gata in real life, just another big cameo scene, who says that they're not going to wipe Evil Morty's mind or put him in cry or anything like that, because making him live a more regular prison existence, like just normal real-life prison, is way bigger punishment, it's way worse, because it's so monotonous. They close the bars on his cell with the look on his face making it seem like he's going to calculate a way to escape and get super jacked in the process, like eventually he will return. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that it didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My episode 2 video will post next week after they release it. I'm probably not going to do full episode videos for the President Curtis spinoff, but I might talk about it in some of my other regular Rick and Morty episodes from the main series, so just let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about that President Curtis stuff. Everybody click here for that new episode. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my other Rick and Morty episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.